Representative Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As stated over and over again, if this bill were to pass, this would be one of the most restrictive gun control laws in the nation. It is antithetical to the Western way of life here in Colorado, a state that has millions of residents living outside of major urban areas and rely on firearms as a way of life. The bill sponsors tout that it can be upheld in court, and that the other states like New Jersey, Connecticut, Maryland have passed similar laws. Too often in this body we ask, can we do this? Instead of asking the more appropriate question, should we do this? Pro-Second Amendment advocates constantly talk about the slippery slope of gun control. This is what we're talking about. This body has passed dozens of gun laws over the last decade. And each year we come back here and we say that gun violence is a problem and we need to do more. We have magazine capacity limits, universal background checks, safe storage laws, age restrictions, 3-day waiting period, state and federal permitting, a state excise tax, gun show restrictions, among other laws. And before we even stop to measure whether they've had any effect, here we are. Something I've been trying to make sense of this entire time is the firearms safety piece. Gun safety courses are intended to teach proper handling of firearms, not the prevention of committing gun violence. Firearms safety courses and hunting safety courses do not mention gun violence at all. Rather, it teaches you how to responsibly handle your firearm. If this state had a rash of accidental discharges, maybe I could understand why you'd be trying to force people to receive training first. But that's not what the bill's intention is. The intention of the bill is to address gun violence and prevent mass shootings. The people committing these mass shootings are deranged individuals who misuse guns, and it's not because they didn't have enough gun safety training. Based on evidence from the trial of the Aurora Theater shooting, the shooter planned his attack very carefully over a 2 to 3 month period. In essence, he had months of training. So why didn't that stop him? It's because there's no logical correlation between the intentions of a madman and gun safety training. We heard in committee that we need time between purchasing a firearm and possessing it in order to give a speed bump in purchases. We already have a 3-day waiting period. CPW is currently averaging 120 days to complete this safety training course. Imagine how backlogged this course will be when it's mandated to the millions of gun owners in Colorado. In committee, we heard about the increasing lethality of firearms. As I pointed out in testimony during the Judiciary Committee, the AR-15 has been sold to the public since 1964. This is at a time when you can order firearms out of a Sears catalog and have it delivered to your house. No background checks, safety classes, or even identification verification required. So what's changed? I'd argue that the way our society values life, respect for others, and the rule of law. This bill doesn't change that. To the exempted firearms list added by the Senate, the word I, my colleagues, and many witnesses used was arbitrary. That's because many of us have a lot of experience with firearms. And when we look at this list, we see that firearms are functionally no different than the typical AR-15 this bill targets. An example we talked about during the committee hearing is the Springfield Armory M1A standard issue rifle, exempted on page 5. Functionally, this firearm is semi-automatic and accepts a detachable magazine, just like an AR-15. It is also the civilian version of the military-issued version, just like the AR-15 is the civilian version of the military-issued M4. The main difference between the two is the bullet size of the M1A is a .308, which is significantly larger and more lethal than the AR-15's .223 caliber. There's a simple word to describe exempting an M1A but including an AR-15, arbitrary. The public servants who are actually tasked with enforcing safety, such as our sheriffs and chiefs of police, are the ones who showed up in committee to oppose this bill. They've stated unequivocally that this will not do what it is intended to do, nor will it stop horrific mass shootings or gun violence it's aimed at preventing. It will not stop school shootings. It will not stop gang violence. It will not stop those who intend to do harm to the innocent. Our law enforcement officials who testified against Senate Bill 3 understand that making the process for legally purchasing a firearm has no bearing on those committing the crimes. Just as we saw last week in Pueblo, where 3 Pueblo police officers were shot by a 14-time convicted felon out on 3 felony bonds, the criminals do not obtain their firearms legally. Members, you can go back to your districts and tell them you're doing something about gun violence. You can point to the recent bill we passed that increases the penalties for firearm theft. This was great bipartisan legislation that passed overwhelmingly in this chamber. Unlike Senate Bill 3, the firearms theft bill specifically targets those committing illegal acts and holds them more accountable. Senate Bill 3 seeks to make it even more difficult for those following the legal process of purchasing a firearm. Why would we honestly think that we would lower gun violence by making it more difficult for the law-abiding citizens to exercise their rights? We are not the ones committing the horrible atrocities or crimes we see in the news, just like the recent police shooting in Pueblo. This is the third iteration of a controversial law in the last 3 years, and arguably worse than the others. It's okay to say you want to do something, but this isn't the bill. Since its introduction in the Senate, it's been amended 35 times. Ask yourselves, are we doing justice to our citizens' rights by passing a bill that was so bad when introduced, we've had to amend it that many times? It's okay to say that we can look again next year. I've received thousands of emails, calls, and messages from not just my House District 20 constituents, but many from your districts and constituents as well, asking me to be a no vote. I cannot and will not cast a vote in favor of a bill that targets the constitutional rights of the law-abiding citizens of my district, while doing nothing to address the criminals who misuse their freedoms to hurt the innocent. On behalf of House District 20 and millions of Coloradans outside of my district, I am a no and ask you to do the same. Thank you.